All right, we're ready.
Ready in the back?
Yes.
Okay. Call to order the Monday, October 28th, 2019 regular meeting of the Oregon City Planning Commission. First item on our agenda, are there any public comment on items that are not on our agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3A is a public hearing request for continuance. So is there anyone here wishing to speak to that? Okay, so then we'll dispense with reading the whole thing and I'll open the public hearing. No public comments? Any comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, anybody have a motion?
Yeah, is there a requested date for the continuance? I don't recall.
Pete, is there a date and does that need to be part of our motion?
Let's see.
I know last time there was a date. So
November 18th?
November 18th.
November 18th. Yep.
I will move for a continuance of GLUA 19-00017 to November 9th. I'm sorry, I forgot. 18th. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Vern seconded. Any comment? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Schlagenhofer,
Aye.
Commissioner Gage,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Stoll,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to item 3B, which is a public hearing on item GLUA-19-00021, an annexation zone change, 7-lot subdivision and a minor variance request at 14576 South Maple Lane Road. And I do get to read the thing, and now that the lights got dim, I got to put my glasses on. Okay. One public hearing on land use application is scheduled tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Planning Commission are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, I will ask the commissioners whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I will also ask whether any of the commissioners have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any commissioner about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. Hearing procedure steps are shown in the chart on the wall. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city can notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and city of residence. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Planning Commission makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both, without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the City and all parties can respond to. The issue will not be deemed appealable to the City Commission or the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Okay, so now we will open the public record for Oregon City file number GLUA-19-00021. All right, and that's a request for an annexation, a zone change, a 7-lot subdivision, and a minor variance request. So, starting with Commissioner Johnson, any ex parte contacts or conflict or interest or a site visit?
No. I didn't even site visit this one. I saw the description and the map that showed it was fairly close to one we had 6 to 9 months ago.
Right across the street.
Right across the street, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Stoll?
No.
Nothing. Okay. Commissioner Gage?
No to all.
No to all, okay.
No to
Commissioner
all.
Schlagenhofer? Oh, no to all.
Yes.
Okay. I have no conflict of interest, no ex parte contact. I visit the site pretty much every day that I'm in town because that's where I walk the dog, that direction. But I will say it's not any kind of a conflict or anything, but I do want, for the record, I live about 2 blocks from this site, just so everybody knows.
Okay.
Okay? So now let's commence with the staff report.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners about what they've stated? No. Okay. Staff report, Mr. Walter.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. So this evening's application consists of 4 separate applications, as you mentioned. Annexation of approximately 1 acre, zone change to R3.5 dwelling district, a 7-lot subdivision, and a request for a minor variance. The applicant is Nathan and Desiree Rowland, and thanks Desiree for being here this evening. I know you've got a crazy schedule and I didn't know if you could or not, so that's great. The address is 14576 South Maple Lane Road. And so this is just a very quick synopsis of the application. As I just mentioned, it's approximately 1 acre. The annexation would include the adjoining right-of-way of Maple Lane Road. I'm going to show you a plan here in a second. There's been a transportation analysis conducted. That analysis indicated that with 6 new dwellings, which includes the existing dwelling plus 7 new, there would be an impact of 4 new morning peak hour trips, 6 new evening peak hour trips, and 56 new weekday trips. And all of the transportation system requirements in our code can be met as conditioned, and that includes a proportional share contribution for improvements to the Beaver Creek Road Highway 213 intersection, which is a calculation that we did for any zone change that impacts the state highway system and has an effect. So this will contribute to that impact and offset that impact. This property is within the original 1979 urban growth boundary. And in the staff report, under all of the public utilities sections and findings, we determined that all of the streets, sidewalks, sewer, water, stormwater, and public utility improvements can be extended to the site and will be part of a subdivision approval as conditioned. This is an aerial photography view of the site. You can see that it's on the intersection there of Clearwater Place and Maple Lane Road. This section on the east side of Clearwater Place is medium density residential in our comprehensive plan, and to the west you have lower density. This is what the zoning map looks like. So you can see that this is part of that R3.5 or medium density residential area. The areas to the north are part of the unannexed portion of the urban growth boundary. And then this is part of this area is largely built out. There are some larger parcels still remaining in this area to be redeveloped, but for the majority it has pretty much been completed. What this subdivision would do would be able to loop the sewer and water lines through Maple Lane Road and make those connections there. And So let's look at the plan a little bit. So the plan went through a small revision. As we were doing review on the initial subdivision, we realized that one of the lots, which is Lot 2, had a slightly less depth than the minimum depth of 70 feet. And we alerted the applicant about that, and they revised the plan and made some changes to lots 2, 3, and 4, and lot 1 as well. And then we did an additional public notice to include a minor variance request. And the area that's circled on the map here shows the dimension in question. So it's just this lot and just this dimension, and it's a minor variance of less than 10%. So it's well within the threshold of what we would typically review at a staff level without sending that variance to the Planning Commission. However, since this is a bundled application, it's all coming before you as a type 4 decision.
Type 3 or type 4?
Type 4 because it involves a zone change that has to go up to the City Commission for approval after this. Yeah. That's correct, right? Yeah, that's right. As you can see from this plan, this would extend Oregon Irish Way, which is a street stub that in the aerial photo, if you're looking at this, there's a stub one parcel over, and if the parcel to the east here is ever redeveloped, there would be a street connection to that stub, and the applicant is making that connection, so it is right in line with our connectivity requirements in our transportation system plan. The overall average of the lots in the subdivision is approximately 4,200 square feet, so the minimum lot size is 3,500. And this is being reviewed under the old code, so it qualifies for the 20% lot averaging. So as you can see, the lots on the south side of Oregon Irish Way are largely the same depth, 70 feet, and the lots on the north side had to be varied slightly to accommodate the angle on Maple Lane Road, and also so that the existing house can fit on the parcel and still meet the interior side yard setback. So this is a view that a shot I took today, actually. Just drove out to the site so you could get a view of what it currently looks like. This is looking north from Clearwater Place. And this is looking south, from south of Maple Lane Road. You can see the intersection with Clearwater.
And that's the home that would remain?
Yeah, that's the home that would remain. And as we've recommended conditions, the way that our subdivision and lot code works under this new layout, the front setback for Lot 1 would be oriented towards Clearwater Place, and the corner side setback would become the Maple Lane setback, just because we require that the front setback be determined based on the long axis of a lot. And this meets our setback criteria because it has an interior side yard setback of 5 feet for the R35 zone.
Does that require moving the driveway? If the front?
I believe the county has said that the driveway can remain. It doesn't really affect anything except the setbacks. So
Okay.
nothing's changing physically on the site, it's just an interpretation of where the setbacks are under our code. It could affect where a fence is placed in terms of a 6-foot privacy fence. But that would be reviewed at the time that any improvements are going in. As far as what will happen with the annexation, the territory would be removed from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office coverage and become part of the Oregon City Police Department coverage. It would also be removed from Clackamas River Water District. It will remain within the Fire District and the Oregon City School District. And since we are part of Tri-City Sewer District, the territory must annex separately to that district, which is an administrative annexation process that the applicant was responsible for and which is acknowledged in the findings. We received no public comments on the application. In fact, if you read the neighborhood association notes, they were very positive about this application, thought it was a good fit for the neighborhood and contributing to the housing diversity and housing stock that we need in the city. Various agency comments are very standard. These are the same ones we typically see when there's a boundary change. School district has no issues. As I mentioned, Tri-City Service District mentioned that about their annexation process. Clackamas River Water will coordinate with our Public Works Department on transferring or abandonment of the existing CRW water service when the subdivision is going through construction plan review. And the Fire District had some standard comments as far as fire access and code compliance with the fire code. The county has jurisdiction over Maple Lane Road, so in terms of how we coordinate improvements on Maple Lane Road, the engineering department looks at our standards, we look at the county department, and they will defer to the city standards as long as those don't conflict with the county standards. So that's they'll be continuing the sidewalk situation along Maple Lane Road, same as you see out there currently. So in our staff report, we've gone through, reviewed the annexation for compliance with Chapter 14.04, which is our annexation code. There are 7 factors that need to be considered for annexations, and we found that this application meets a positive balance of factors for annexation. The zone change to R3.5 meets our comprehensive plan. The subdivision meets all of the criteria relevant to a land division, and the minor variance meets the criteria for the slightly reduced lot depth on Lot 2. So we felt that this application meets all of the criteria, or can meet all of the criteria with the conditions that we've recommended as staff. So we're recommending approval and that the Planning Commission adopt as your own our staff report and forward a recommendation to the City Commission for approval of this application. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Got a quick one. The purpose of the curve in the road, is that to hit Maple Lane as perpendicular as possible?
That's a really good question. I think we can have the applicant come up and answer that. Yeah. You'll need to come up.
You'll be up in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as we finish with our questions of Mr. Walter.
I honestly don't know the answer to that, but we will.
I think she had an answer, that's why she was trying to come up.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. And she'll have an opportunity to answer.
Okay, thank you.
I've got
That was mine.
2 quick things.
Sure.
Can you bring up the aerial photo? And I'm sure this is a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The area in the upper right corner that's undeveloped was originally part of the Crabtree Terrace Phase 2. And it turned out that the property was too low to make a connection to the sewer. Do we not have that issue with this subject property? Is it high enough?
It's high enough that they can gravity sewer on this section.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one other question that has really nothing to do with this application, but I'm just curious. If you look there where Nutmeg Lane goes up, and then there's a left turn to the little stub piece of Oregon Iris Way.
Right.
So this property is going to have a connection that goes across, and there's one intervening property.
Correct.
So if that one comes in and they make the connection, it still doesn't hit what was built out on Oregon Iris Way. And I'm just curious, why wasn't the developer Crabtree Terrace required to run that all the way to the property line?
Oh, yeah. Now you're taking me back
Because who's going to be responsible for that
a few
now?
years on that one. I think there's a utility situation going on there, but Yeah, that'll be something that we'll have to talk with engineering about. I can't remember exactly why they didn't require that stub all the way over. I think that was because of a topography and grade issue, but I'd have to go back and look at the record. It was 2009.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I know it's not a part of this, but
Yeah,
we're gonna end up,
yeah.
even if, this one gets built
Yeah.
before us tonight, and then the next one comes along, but we still have that chunk, we're not gonna be able to make the connection.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was off the track.
That's an important point. I'll take note of that and take it forward to the city commission with a response from engineering.
Okay, well, it's not really a part of this, I don't,
Well, in terms of connectivity, the reason we require shadow plats and connectivity analysis is precisely to ask questions like that. So I think it's a really good point.
any other questions from the commissioners for staff? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant. You have up to 15 minutes if you want it.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think.
You need to come up. Come up and identify yourself, your name and city of residence.
If you could make sure your little red light is on by pressing the button, that's fine.
Okay, I'm Desiree Rowland, and right now we live in Happy Valley, but we're actually gonna move into this property for a little while, so this week, so. I was gonna say the curve we were following that when I was working with engineering. Originally, we had it straight on the plot map, and I think after we talked to Song in engineering, he had shown, the street doesn't appear to have that, but somehow that's a part of the plat or the way that the utilities are running or something. We actually had to change it. So we had it straight, and then Song, I think, recommended just to show it the best possible view of how utilities will run, and maybe you need a curve, a little more room to do with sidewalks. There was just some recommendation, and then I remember going back to engineering with a couple comments, and then we got that updated. So that's all I was gonna say.
So where's the property line though? Does it follow the curve or does it still follow the straight line? Did the property shrink? Because originally was the property line straight?
Yeah, once it's platted, it would follow that curve at the back of the sidewalk there.
So then the street easement gets moved over?
Yeah, I mean, the street
The
is
property gets
basically taken care of through either, the replat would take care of that.
Okay.
And any easements that need to be changed or any deeds of dedication that need to be recorded, the engineering department would take care of that.
Okay, their property line doesn't end up in the street?
Right.
That'll be strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suspect they're looking to get more of a T intersection or more of a
That's what I
90-degree
figured
coming
it
into
was.
Maple Lane as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, because looking way over your shoulder is not safe when you're pulling out.
right, especially there, because people are coming ripping around that. There's
They
a
are.
corner off the map on the left. There's a right turn on Maple Lane, and people come zipping around that corner pretty quick, so you'd be better off to be straight.
Yep. Right?
Commissioner Gage had a question, and I'm curious. So, also, there are the property in between the existing Crabtree Terrace. There are some lines drawn in there. That's not part of any proposal at this
That's
point. That's
a-
just what could happen.
That's what could happen. It's called the shadow plat or the connectivity analysis. And
Oh, I see.
it's supposed to be based on zoning code that we have in effect, and it assumes that that piece is redeveloped under city code and making that street connection over to Oregon Iris Way.
Okay,
Then Hammerhead
just
up
a
to-
shadow plat.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything else? Any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Since there are no members of the public in the room, I'm going to assume there are no public comments, and so no need for rebuttal, so we can close the public hearing at this point. And our deliberation and a motion. Any comments?
Sounds pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, I see no issues there.
Looks good.
Okay. Do we have a motion? And in this case, we're not okay, so do we need different motions because part of this is a recommendation of the city commission, and we are granting the variance request. No?
It's all one package.
It's all one
So
package.
it'll just be one recommendation.
Okay, so our motion is just to recommend approval of these items to the city commission.
If that's what you choose, yeah.
Okay. Anybody have a motion?
I'll do the motion, and if you tell me what the number is, we're approving.
It is
Motion to approve.
GLUA 19-21.
And you can just say the GLUA number.
Yeah, you can just say that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 19-00021 annexation and zone change of the 7-lot subdivision and minor variance request for 14576 South Maple Lane.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? Call for the vote.
Commissioner Schlagenhofer,
Aye.
Commissioner Gage,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Stoll,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right.
This
Thank
will
you.
be before the city commission on the November 20th meeting, I believe.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4A. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
4A, buildable land inventory and preliminary housing needs analysis presentation. Ms. Turway.
I'm going to be presenting this.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Your day in the barrel, huh?
Yeah. So I've given this presentation once to the city commission, so hopefully we'll go off without a hitch with y'all. This is a summary of a very, very long and detailed report that was prepared for Clackamas County. Clackamas County did a housing needs analysis, and it includes several cities that are within the urban growth boundary as well as several outlying areas. So the results of this housing needs analysis form the baseline HNA, or housing needs analysis, for all the participating cities. Includes information about the housing market and affordability. And it also has a preliminary discussion about housing policy for certain issues for Oregon City, which I'm going to discuss in a general way. So as far as the geography of the county and which areas were, and how the company Echo Northwest went about doing this analysis for the county, they divided it up into 4 topic areas. So, and geographically, we have the unincorporated Clackamas County area within the UGB. We have the cities within the UGB, of which we're one. We have the unincorporated county outside the urban growth boundary, and in which cities Estacada and Molalla have a separate housing needs analysis. Let's see. The buildable land inventory, which forms the initial stage of this analysis, has to comply with the statewide planning goal 10, which is housing, and that governs planning for residential uses. This table indicates that Oregon City has 866 unconstrained buildable acres of residentially zoned land or designated land, and 73 acres of vacant commercial land where housing, so these are where housing is allowed. About 37% of Oregon City's unconstrained residential land is vacant, and about 63% are in tax lots classified as partially vacant. And this methodology has to comply with the state law, and it's the same methodology they apply to all the cities and the county. About 50% of our unconstrained buildable land is in the low density residential plan designation. As far as housing forecast, this is based on a combination of metro data and permit data and census data projecting out to 2039. The estimate for household growth is that we'll see an increase of about 3,000 households. And the average household size is approximately 2.1, 2.2 people per household now. So this estimate is slightly less than what we've done estimates for in our concept plan areas, and quite a bit less than what the transportation system plan anticipated in terms of growth through 2040. So, but it's all based on models, and models can vary. So, as you know, so we will have demand for approximately 2,900 new dwelling units over a 20-year period at an average annual growth of about 140, 150 units a year. Right now, our housing mix is very close to that of the county, predominantly 60 single-family detached, and in the 2013 to 2017 period, we also had about 6% of single-family attached, which means townhomes, and 20% in multifamily, which they define as 3 units or more attached. In comparison, the mix in Portland is slightly higher as far as multifamily goes and slightly less than for single family. Our median sale price for Oregon City is very close to the county's, and right about $136,655. That's the change, not the actual price, so it's a significant increase. The median gross rent has increased significantly, 55%. Multifamily, as a proportion of that, has increased about 47%. And in terms of housing cost burden, which is defined as when you pay 30% or more of your household income on housing, about 35% of our households are cost burdened, and about 50% of our renters are cost burdened. They're very similar to those. These burden rates are the same, similar to the Portland metro area. And this shows the change. As far as general demographic trends, we have slightly fewer proportion of baby boomers within the city. But that's defined as our share of people who are over 60 years of age, and slightly larger proportion of millennials. In terms of Latinx populations, it has increased from 5% to 8%, and trends suggest that these increases in demand for single-family attached and multifamily housing. But as you know, from the code update that we've been going through, different housing needs rely on a variety of housing unit types. And so you'll see if you read the report, some of the implications from this is that our code update was moving towards providing more single-family attached, more smaller units, more cottage units, and greater variety of lots and housing sizes overall. On that, I get caught up. So about 30% of our future households will have an income below 50% of Clackamas County's median family income. So that's where we need to be concentrating some of our energies in terms of providing that unit type, greater variety. About 31% would have between 50% and 120% of the county's median family income. And what this assumes is that 41% of those new households would have incomes over 120% of the Clackamas County median family income. So you've got a variety of people who are cost burdened, but you also have people who are going to be seeking a higher amenity type of housing as well. So when we talk about equity, we're talking about the full range of housing unit types. As far as trends go, it shows a substantial need for both higher amenity housing types as well as more affordable housing types, including government subsidized housing and the missing middle housing types such as townhomes, duplexes, manufactured housing, cottage clusters, and small lot single family. And we have a good news is that we have a surplus of capacity of vacant land zoned for residential uses within the UGB over the next 20 years, with the exception of high-density residential use or for multifamily. And as a consequence, this is a baseline needs analysis, and what they've identified in the report is that in order for us to move forward with a full housing need analysis, we kind of have to look at how we can meet that need for multifamily. We can look at redevelopment. We can look at development of more multifamily in our mixed-use commercial areas, which we already allow. We can look at increasing density within our existing multifamily zoning, or we could look at rezoning land, but or some combination of all four of these. And since we're going into a 2-year comprehensive plan update process, this would be a natural concentration for us to look at in terms of housing. As far as next steps, we want to incorporate this information into our comprehensive plan update for Goal 10. We want to reach out to the community and share this analysis and get feedback on it. We want to look at the availability, location, and need for housing options by cost and type, and look at the impact of our recent amendments as well. And try to identify opportunities to address any housing deficits. And we really want to tailor this for Oregon City. Even though we're very similar to the county in terms of needs and burdens and mix, we need to make sure that this is right for Oregon City and take into account, for example, all of our 3 concept plan areas where a majority of that growth is probably going to occur and which has the potential to accommodate the bulk of this new growth. And then in terms of the mixed use and commercial zones, we wanted to look at that in more detail and see what is the market availability, market viability of redevelopment of multifamily or true mixed use with multifamily above, like in the downtown areas and along the corridors in Molalla, 7th Avenue. And that is a very quick synopsis of the report. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll attempt to answer them, but this is me kind of giving you the summary from Echo Northwest. So it's a pretty detailed analysis.
It may be too early, but what are the solutions for, is it rezoning, is it organization, is it? Or I should say, I know those are all possible.
Yeah.
What's the preferred one from staff, or is there one yet? Or?
We don't have one. We really want to reach out and talk about this with the community at large as part of the comprehensive plan update. And I think this forms a good basis for that. It's nice to have this done between the code amendments and the comp plan update so that we can use it as a tool for informing that discussion. Yeah.
So real simply, we need more multifamily space
Yeah.
than we have.
Yeah.
But we have enough space to do that.
If we make some assumptions about how we redevelop our mixed-use areas. Yeah.
And as far as our
And commercial areas too.
as far as our requirements being a part of Metro going forward, we have to provide that 50% of the new we have to provide so that 50% of the new units can be multifamily or single-family attached, right? Did I read that right?
Well, it's not a requirement. They're just saying what is attainable in general right now. It's kind of a snapshot, and we have to think about how we can support those households that are cost burdened. But I don't know that there's a mandate to do this right now. I think it'll be coming out of the additional analysis that we do. What do you?
And that'll be part of the comp plan?
Yeah.
Process.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I know what we're supposed to be building or what Metro wants us to build, what ratio, but we just do the zoning. How do we actually engage the builders and the developers to build exactly that, 50%?
Well, in our land division code, we have minimum density requirements, and in each base zone now has a minimum net density requirement. So that's part of the answer. And then when we do concept plans for the areas that have not yet been annexed to the city, they require us to do an estimate of what the ultimate zone capacity of that area will be in order to meet Metro's housing targets. And the South End concept plan, and in general, that's 10 units per acre, but you're allowed to spread that density around in your concept plan in a way that makes sense. So you might have some higher areas that are 22 units per acre multifamily, and then you have low densities, about 4 units per acre, and it, those are what, when you look at the Park Place concept plan and the South End concept plan, that kind of land use mix is embodied in that. In both of those concept plans, we got substantial compliance with the requirement for metro density. We didn't hit 10 units per acre in either plan, but it made sense for our topography and what our community's needs were. So, and as far as Beaver Creek Road goes, there is some housing density in there as well. Yeah.
So to follow up a little bit on Dirk's question, the developer may not be in the driver's seat to come in and cherry pick land and says, yeah, I want to take this chunk of land and build $500,000 plus worth of house on each lot. If they choose a chunk of ground, it has a mix of zones or mix of housing needs on that he can build some percentage of it, what he really wants to do, possibly, at 500,000 and up, but he has to provide some of that missing middle chunk that we're looking for?
Well, I think the way that we're attacking it is through a variety of zone districts and comprehensive plan designations. And so if a developer wants to do more than that, they could apply for rezoning. If it meets our comprehensive plan, they could potentially apply for a planned unit development if they want a more flexible approach to a development. That's our new master plan, planned unit development process. And then in terms of mandating affordability of housing, I don't believe the city is in that position yet. The way we would do it is by allowing the market to respond to the zoning that we have, and if there's an issue there, then we would look at the zoning first. That's not to say that we can't look at options in terms of public lands and land that is potentially urban renewal land or land that was formerly owned by Clackamas Housing Authority, for example, and is going to be redeveloped, and the city commission can, enter into a discussion about that. And
so you have quite a few more options of how you put the puzzle together.
Yeah, but that's
meet your goal, that overall goal that you want.
Yeah, and that's what the comprehensive plan process is all about. It's been since 2003 since we looked at housing in general. I think the housing document that informed the previous comprehensive plan was done in 1998.
2002.
2002, sorry. Yeah, so that's a little out of date too. Yeah.
Okay, one more thing, my mind wanders. The affordable housing bond that just passed, is that a Metro bond? Who's running that? And then
Metro.
How does that money get allocated to the different cities?
I was reading today, they only just put the committee together to help disperse the bond funds, and it's, so I think there's
So
going to be
depending on what you're planning here, they may give the city some funds.
We would.
But how do you make a proposal to them, or how does it?
The county is dispersing the funds. I think they have a meeting this week on the 30th, I believe.
Okay.
So what does the
check
city
their
need to do to get
agenda.
part of that?
The city is not building anything, and we didn't apply for any grants
So
to
a developer
do anything.
works with them more than the city does?
Typically,
Okay,
yeah. Or housing authority, or someone who's gonna.
right. But we have to give them the zoning that works, that allows them to build something that would use that money. The city doesn't really benefit from the money then.
Well, the city would benefit if someone else, like the county, wants to put if they want to redevelop one of their parks that the housing authority has or things like that, we would benefit from that. But no.
Yeah, we can offer certain types of incentives, and we do in our zoning code through the master plan process. So, for example, in an R35 zone, if you do a master plan, you can ask to do multifamily, but only through a master plan discretionary process that comes before the planning commission. Those kinds of things, and you could
Right.
get a slightly higher density if you did that.
Okay.
That sort of thing. And a lot of it would be based on how good is the design of that master plan, and how does that mix make sense, and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So in terms of zoning tools, I think we've got a good toolbox.
Right. We have incentives in R2. You can build multifamily in most places around the city, right? Except for
Right.
strictly single-family zone. I mean,
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Pete?
Do they,
Yeah.
in terms of the zoning, is it, if you have multifamily, large apartment complex or whatever, is it more advantageous to have that in a part of the city rather than have it plopped in different,
Well,
in different places within different densities and?
Well, one of the main things that we want to look at is, we're not planning to do a zoning map change with this comp plan update. We might have some things that come out of it that say, you might want to look at, but it's not going to be part and parcel of the comprehensive plan in order to implement it. The comprehensive plan is going to be looking vision, goals, and policies, rather than a zoning implementation piece. To get to your question, we're going to be looking at where our existing zones are, and a lot of the multifamily zones are best when they're next to transit. So we're going to look at that, or at least a higher volume corridor with the potential for transit, because the ridership has to be there before TriMet will extend service. And if there is any opportunity to extend service beyond a typical, route, then we could also look at that through the comprehensive plan lens as well. A big part of the comprehensive plan is equity and resiliency and economic redevelopment. So when we wrote the first grant application, there was a lot of that language in there, and that was a successful grant. And I think the same approach is going to work well for the second half of the grant request as well. And it's going to be incumbent on us to put together a broad group of stakeholders in order to get a good comprehensive view of what housing ought to look like for the city. But not just housing, but every other aspect of the comp plan too.
But what's meant by resiliency?
Well,
Context.
there's a lot of buzzwords out there. It
Yeah,
used
there
to be sustainability,
Sure.
all of that. That was the
Yeah.
old one. Resiliency, in a very real sense, means having robust, geologic hazard overlay. If you're on a coast, it means having good tidal and tsunami protections and things like that. Here we worry about earthquake, landslide, flooding.
Lack of natural hazards.
Exactly. But resiliency also goes to economic resiliency as well. So.
and housing resiliency. So if there is an incident that people could be rehoused, or maybe the quality of housing is good enough to withstand some events.
Yep.
Or that there's choices for housing in the first place.
Okay. Any other questions for Pete?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So where
Yeah.
are we at in the cycle of this now? Is it?
Of the housing needs analysis,
Yeah,
or the
you did a presentation, as I understand it, to the city commission.
ones?
And that's
yeah.
what you did took for us tonight.
Yeah.
And then where's it?
Well, it's kind of the next steps that I alluded to here. We're going to keep this ball rolling, and when we do the visioning process and form a stakeholder committee, we'll be having within that stakeholder committee, which I think is going to be about, a pretty big committee, about 30 people, but there'll be breakout groups within it that are going to be looking at housing and environment, various aspects of comprehensive plan, because even though we want it to be a readable document, it still has to conform to state land use goals. But the current document is broken out by chapters, like goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, and it follows the statewide land use goals. And so that is something that we have to do in order for us to have a fully acceptable, acknowledged plan at the end of the process. But we want the document not to just sit on a shelf and be read by planners. We want it to be a document that works for the general public as well. So what are the topic areas that we envision in the grant?
So,
Sorry.
broadly, it's wrapped up with a comprehensive plan. We had some very smart economists do the study to tell us what housing is needed. There's a lot of assumptions in here that we want to prove through the public. Maybe some is needed. I mean, depending on how you look at some of those assumptions, that might change some of the results of the study. In the comprehensive plan update, there will be a group that will look at, among other things, housing and how we implement this, and if we should make map recommendations for map amendments or things like that. But this will go in to inform the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan. And at the end of the day, it will spit out something that says, goals like we need to continue to support a variety of housing options or affordable housing options, or we need to upzone however many acres of something. And so we will keep moving along, but since we had this technical piece done early, we want to share it early so people have time to simmer on it and think about it, because it's kind of a lot, especially when it's wrapped in a larger package of code amendment or a comprehensive plan as well. But we hope to be kicking off the comprehensive plan in 2020, the beginning of 2020. We're hoping to get consultants by then, and then you'll start to see public engagement. Aside from this, you'll start to see us recruit you for public engagement. And so hopefully we can reach out to all of our community members to understand what their vision for Oregon City is. Comprehensive plan, if you recall, first step is to do a community visioning. So that's us getting boots on the ground, talking to all of our fellow community members to understand what they would like for Oregon City in the future in the next 20 years. And then we'll take all that information, create a vision, and from that vision, we'll update the comprehensive plan. So it's going to be a while before we actually get to this in the comprehensive plan. It'll be more than a year.
The only thing I would add is that we took the 19 pages from the full county HNA, which is an excerpt for Oregon City, and Aiken Northwest did make some edits based on our input back and forth, probably about 4 or 5 times before they finally produced a draft, because we wanted to include in that report the work that this Planning Commission and City Commission have been doing on the code, and also not just to address a market analysis of housing, but also talk about the homeless issue, because we had a point-in-time homeless count that was going on at the same time that this report came out. So there's some information in the report about that. It makes it a little more Oregon City-centric and geared towards the policies that we've currently adopted, which is good. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Pete?
Yeah, well, maybe for Peter or for Laura, or maybe it's not even a question, it's just something, an observation. One of the things I noticed that they were talking about with affordable housing is the desire to include people in all communities instead of trying to, it's like, was it inclusionary zoning instead of exclusionary, where you don't just put all the low-income people in one corner that the land no one else wants to live in, but you want to kind of put them into the communities with everybody else. So as far as the comprehensive plan and like the Beaver Creek Concept Plan, that's one of the factors you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, exclusionary zoning refers to, if you only have one type of housing type allowed and you don't allow any others.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're in danger of that based on the work we've been doing to date. Okay. But larger than that, it does get to the issue of equity and engaging people who are traditionally not involved in planning processes, either because they're working 2 or 3 jobs and don't have the time or just don't know. And right. So our focus as far as public involvement is going to be, it's going to be very much going to those groups and seeking people in those groups who can serve as voices for that process. We want to try to empower and educate people to do public outreach. So when we put that stakeholder group together, there'll be some training involved, and the consultant will help us do that. That's what we envision. And it'll be a new type of process for us, so we're kind of learning as we go. And there's a lot of great examples out there from communities, small and large, who are doing similar things in the Portland area, but also throughout Oregon. And they do a lot with a little. So, and I think they do it best when they do reach out and get those people who are typically not at the table involved. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Okay. Laura, communications?
All right, thank you. So on December 4th is a city commission hearing date, and that is the yearly time in which the chair of the planning commission goes to the city commission and just updates the city commission on all the great work that the planning commission has been up to. I put before you a list of all the agenda items that you guys have worked on. So it's for the calendar year of 2019, so I didn't put December in here from last year. But it's 3 pages, single space, so congratulations. The Planning Commission has been busy. And as if the last couple of years before working on these code amendments wasn't a lot, there's certainly a lot of code amendments in here. I think there's a couple of meetings where there's like 3 or 4 different types of code amendments between housing and heritage trees and our historic district. So I wanted to thank the Planning Commission for all your good work. Also, I wanted to give a space for Chair Mitchell to ask if there was anything else, any specific guidance from the commission as a whole as he moves forward. There's certainly a little bit of time because we'll meet again in November, but I just wanted to put this on, plant a seed for you guys.
Does Commissioner Mitchell have to go over all of these?
No, you only have like 3 minutes,
Gonna hit the high spots.
5
Did you
minutes.
remember them all? That's a lot of
Gonna
stuff.
write notes. I usually talk off the top of my head when I talk to the city commission, but I won't on this.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
remember that much.
a lot of big picture, long range stuff this year. It's very not typical.
So I'm thinking that the presentation will be partly here's what we've done and partly here's what's coming up.
Sure.
Yeah?
Whatever you want to do as a committee.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So
As a
what I'm looking for is input from any of the commissioners, items that you think for sure we want to bring to the attention of the city commission. And we don't have to do that tonight because we're throwing this at you, but we've got, 2 November meetings?
Yeah, we can do a separate agenda item in a future meeting.
Right.
Okay.
So your homework is to be thinking about things that you want me to present to the city commission on behalf of the planning commission.
Okay, is this something we want to discuss with emails or just take notes and spill it here and,
Take
No
notes
emails.
and take notes and bring it here.
Okay.
When we start doing
All right.
emails, we start stomping on public meeting
and there'll be a lot of stuff to
requirements, and I
try to
don't want
print
to
out.
get into that.
Okay,
And then
But bring your notes.
all right.
as
Or you
you,
can email your notes to Laura, right?
you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
I
can do
can
it.
bundle them together and put them in
Yeah.
the agenda. as
Just
it
don't
comes out.
copy all.
That's right. I like this. Well-trained committee. When you're thinking about what we've done, you may be thinking about where we go as a committee. The Planning Commission's still online. We have the Planning Commission goals, and they follow the biennium budget, which ended in June. And so we're now on a new budget that's started in July 2019, and it goes to June 2021. So we're a few months into a 2-year budget, and we never went through this goal-setting process. It sounds like we'll start to talk about that in January after you get your 7th commissioner going. And then if there's things that you want to talk about, we can do that. Sometimes planning commissions set goals, sometimes they don't. I think for the most part, they haven't had goals. But most certainly recently, we have had goals. A lot of the goals that the prior planning commission had identified committees they want to work with or have work sessions on, or things they wanted to learn more about, like stormwater. So if there's topics of interest or things, if you need filler items for us to fill agendas, please let us know how we can better support you. And then they also had some policy stuff where they wanted to recommend to the city commission before the city commission did the next year's city goals. So certainly, one of the things we'll want to do with you is make sure that we have a couple of meetings about if there's any policy recommendations or projects you really think are important for the city commission to consider when they do the next biennium update. So we'll talk to you in about a year from now is when we'll be having those discussions. I did want to acknowledge in these city commission goals, it has future goals for the 2019 to 2021 biennium. And I'm pleased to announce that we've been crossing these things off the list. It talks about food cards, completing the housing inventory, and then it talks about some code amendment stuff that we've already implemented too. So according to this one, we're well on our way. But I wanted to acknowledge our next meeting on November 11th is canceled. We are going to have a meeting the next Monday after that, which is a special date, which is November 18th. And then we'll be having our November 25th meeting as well. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I would like to have input from the group on whether or not we want to establish our own goals and what the timing should be. So those planning commission goals are on the website. The city commission's new goals are in a brochure right back there on the counter. So we would want our goals to line up with their goals. So you might want to grab one of those too.
I just wanted to add something that just came up with the email in my mind. Just for housekeeping, so sometimes I get stuff at the city address, and sometimes I get things at my personal address, and sometimes it's both, sometimes it's one or the other. Is there a way we can clean up everybody's mailbox so that my personal address isn't part of the public record?
We should certainly do that.
Okay.
Yes, we absolutely should.
Okay.
And if you get anything from your personal, forward it to your city email, please.
Okay.
I will make sure that our email lists are updated to reflect that.
Okay, great, thank you.
This is a new one.
My
I have
apologies.
an old one, sorry.
seen this either.
I think the resumes.
Oh, no, I don't.
These are my
That's
personal
really new.
email.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
All right, Laura, anything else?
No, thank you.
Anything else from any of the commissioners?
Nope.
All right, we're adjourned.